Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric. It's that time of the month. It is time for the MAME news updates because MAME.277 is out as of yesterday afternoon. So of course it takes me about 24 hours to get these videos buttoned up, voiced over, and out. We're going to be going over all of the fun new updates on MAME today, and it is a great month. Right off the top, we're going to be going over Konami GX and all of these fun transparency effects and fades that are now going to be in the board, as well as something like Mystic Warriors, because this thing has seen a ton of graphical improvements, and honestly, these are some of Konami's best games, so it's going to be a fun time. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, got a Patreon link down below as well. But take a look at this capture here from the most current version of MAME. As the character goes into the plane, you're going to see that the screen is going to lock down, and then it is going to lightly fade into the next area, like basically a transition from one scene to the next. That is what you're going to be getting in the new version of MAME. But let's roll back to the older version of MAME .276, and you'll see exactly what would have happened if you played this game last month. You're going to be on the exact same plane. You're going to go ahead and take a continue because you died. All jokes aside, apparently that's just what happened in my capture. And as you come up to the same plane, you're going to see a fundamental different result. Basically, the sprite's going to drop down below the plane. You're going to feel like the game froze and nothing is going to transition correctly. That is because some of the effects on the Konami GX hardware have been improved in this version of MAME. So now these GX games basically feel completely perfect, and I will be doing a whole hardware overview video probably next Friday or so. But that is just an absolutely massive improvement, taking these games and just making them feel like they're absolutely doing everything they should if they're real arcade boards. And trust me, if you want a Mystic Warriors board, you better bring your wallet. It's going to cost you a fortune. When you beat the game, you're going to get these scene transitions, remembering what happened during the actual game in and of itself, and it's going to fade to the different characters as they think of the events of the game as they played out. You'll see here, it's a really nice transition, really nice fade, and something you don't see that often on arcade boards of the era. If we move back to the previous capture from the previous version of MAME, you're going to see that it'll fade in once, not as smoothly, to the character that you played, and then it's just going to sit there and none of those other screen results are going to show up, so it definitely is way improved. Now unfortunately, not every single Model 2 improvement that I showed you in a preview video has made its way over to MAME this month, because the developer is apparently still working on them before they're going to be merged into the actual MAME, so maybe in .278 we'll see this. But Manx TT did get some improvements based on the MAME notes, and I'm just showing you a capture from MAME .277 today. But obviously Model 2 is going to be getting a lot better very soon, but it's one of those things, sometimes it takes 2-3 months from when we know these improvements are coming or can test them off the preview code versus when they actually get merged in. In the last video, people were talking about nightlies versus just unofficial builds of MAME. This is just work that you can compile and test yourself until it actually comes out in the official MAME releases. So whatever you want to call it, it's basically the exact same concept. Now I will say the steering in Manx here is definitely a little bit twitchy, but again, this is non-finalized emulation. But people have been getting absolutely hyped for what's going to be coming for Model 2 in MAME in the future, because obviously the other Model 2 emulator we have has been abandoned for probably like 15-20 years now, and while it does play all of the games, it isn't the smoothest experience ever, so being able to play all of these in MAME in the future is going to be absolutely spectacular. But if you want to play Manx TT today, you can do it. You just might need to dial in some of the analog values on your controller, especially in first person view. This screen will definitely tilt, and it tilts way too hard, way too fast in the current version of MAME. But I definitely prefer playing this game in the third person anyway, because even when you're on an arcade cabinet, that rotation of the screen, at least for me, gives me a little bit of a nauseating headache feeling. Some people get motion sick from games, some people don't. Some people just find a particular one that kind of trips them up. Manx TT definitely is one that does that for me. But it's going to be so much fun to follow the Model 2 improvements as MAME goes on, because it does have some of Sega's best arcade games of all time, and I definitely want to play a lot more of them. But leave me a comment down below and you tell me what your favorite Sega Model 2 game is. For me, it's always going to be the House of the Dead, which is going to lead us into our next sample of what MAME's currently doing on .277 and what it will do in the future. If you load up the House of the Dead today, you're going to get a little bit of a graphics crawl, but then it's going to go to a black screen and none of the geometry is actually going to dry. You're just going to get the kanji on the side and the press start button, 2 credits to start. But this is what it's going to look like, and more importantly, what it's going to sound like soon. And it is your first soundtrack sample, so go ahead and listen for 45 seconds or so, and I'll be back with more.
Help! Everyone's getting killed!
All die! The House of the Dead.
And it sounds pretty accurate to my ears, even if it's non-finalized emulation, even if it isn't incorporated into the mainline version of MAME this month. But tell me down below, do you like seeing previews of what's coming? I know a couple people in the comments before the previous video I did were saying, well, until it's in MAME, they didn't really like seeing it. And I didn't quite understand that. I feel like most people get excited to see what's coming down the pipeline, but you tell me down below. But again, it's going to be a ton of fun to get Model 2 emulation buttoned up on MAME, because it's just going to be one more set of hardware that we're going to be able to play and enjoy. And this is definitely hardware that deserves preservation, and it's hardware that is getting harder to find. If you want to buy an original The House of the Dead board today, it's not going to be cheap, and sometimes, depending on the day, you may not actually even see one for sale. I'm not saying that this game is becoming rare, I'm just saying a lot of collectors have it in their collections, and it's not like Sega's making any more boards anytime soon. So for a lot of people that use MAME, this is going to be awesome just to be able to enjoy those games the way they want to, because I know for some reason or another some people really don't like using the Model 2 emulator that's out there. It is a little bit strange, and as far as the actual shot alignment on the resolutions you use, your aim for the light gun in the House of the Dead can be slightly off if you actually try to increase the screen res. So it's one of those things. It'll definitely be a lot better in MAME, and hopefully we'll be playing it in MAME.278. We'll just have to wait and see. Now moving over interestingly to the Neo Geo side of things, there were notes that 2 new Neo Geo games have been made to work in MAME. One's going to be Double Dragon 1, which is a fan remake of the Double Dragon game from the Zeebo console, the one from Latin America, and it is fun when they add support for different games that come out after the lifespan of hardware, because it's one of those things. We have a ton of different ways to play Neo Geo, whether it's real hardware, FPGA, or emulation, but people actually need to go in and make sure that new games work. On the Mr. FPGA side of things, demos like this sometimes need to have the XML file adjusted so they will actually load in, so I'm sure it's something relatively similar on the MAME side of things as well. And if you haven't checked out the Double Dragon 1 demo yet, I can't stress it enough. It is a ton of fun. I did a whole video preview on it, and when the game's complete, I'm definitely going to be reviewing it, because it's an awesome beat 'em up, and honestly the Neo Geo definitely could use some more beat 'em ups in my opinion. It's got some great ones, but another good beat 'em up is always going to be a fun time. If you want to check this game out today in MAME, the nice thing is you can now do so I appreciate the devs out there are making sure the new games are playable. Speaking of which, Xenocrisis is going to be playable again. Bitmap Bureau just absolutely nailed this one. They hit a home run out of the park, basically giving you almost like a Smash TV style game, except in the world of Aliens as a movie franchise, but it's also its own thing. And again, it's just awesome that people go in and make sure these games are playable, because Bitmap Bureau will sell you just the ROM for this, so if you want to emulate it on MAME and you want to support the devs, you're going to be able to load it up and play it however you want, which is awesome. And I just love that as a concept too. You can just basically put it on a Neo SD, you can put it on Mr. FPGA, you can just buy the ROM versus the cartridge if you don't collect Neo Geo and still have the same fun. Now interestingly, and they didn't have a list of games, so I'm just presuming here, there are going to be some audio improvements to Wonderswan emulation as well. This is Daimaki Yamura for Wonderswan, my favorite game on the handheld, and I do have an original, and this is what it should sound like. So go ahead and listen for 35 seconds or so, but come back, because I still got more MAME improvements to show you. If you've never played Daimaki Yamura for Wonderswan, I can't stress enough just how fun of a game it is, and apparently there's also some audio improvements in some Game Boy games as well this month. But moving back over to the Konami GX, I want to go through some more of these effects and talk about just how much work the MAME devs do to make sure these things work correctly. Because when we walked into the water here, you could see it was fully transparent, and it does slightly shift the color of the overall scene as well, going from brown closer to a blue, because obviously you are underwater, so that tonal shift in the colorways is going to happen, and it is a very small effect that you might not not even notice isn't working, but as far as some of the effects, you can blatantly tell that they are not working as they are expected to. As we come into this boss area here, let's move back over to the previous version of MAME, and you're going to see the same water area starts out completely not transparent and then just flashes to transparencies. It is a very small item, but it's one of those things. MAME strives for accuracy to make sure that it's preserved for all time as close to the arcade board as is humanly possible. Does it matter that the water wasn't transparent when you first saw it? Honestly, it doesn't affect the fun whatsoever, but it's one of those things. It matters when you want to play it, and if you want it to be the most proper experience you can get. Now if you take a look at the water here, when we go down this raft, take a look at the colors of it, and as we move back to the previous version of MAME, you're going to see it looks completely different. I'm not sure exactly which one I prefer here. Maybe the flawed one is actually the one that I think has a little bit better pop on the contrast to separate you from what you're actually doing in the scene, but it just wasn't accurate, and that does matter a ton. And as far as other updates, there's been some improvements in loading floppy disks for the Sharp X68000 as well, and again, sometimes the notes can be a little bit vague as far as what every single game is going to be improved, but it is fun to see Sharp X68000 improvements in MAME as well. Just recently, yesterday, was talking about them on the Mr. FPJ with the Neon 68K pack. It is one of my favorite Japanese computers of all time, has an awesome library, and honestly, using the emulators that you'll find online, they work perfectly, but they can be very difficult to set up because most of them are almost entirely in Japanese. So I can't wait for the day when every single game on the Sharp X68000 just works perfectly on something like MAME. It's going to be great from a preservation standpoint because trust me, you do not want to pay the money to buy an X68000 unless you just feel like burning some cash, because a good example model with a recap motherboard and a Pico power supply to replace the dying original power supply is probably going to be over $2,000 these days, and you got to find the monitor to go along with it because most of the games ran in 31 kilohertz, some in 24 kilohertz, and very few in 15 kilohertz or standard, medium, and high resolution mode back in the day. So it's great to see the X68000 get some love this month as well. Didn't expect to see it, but I always love when I get surprised by the MAME updates. But the biggest one, even if it is still pending for me, feels like the excitement of Model 2 emulation getting better. It's one of those things, once the dev feels like it is ready to commit to the actual mainline MAME, you're going to see it in there, and I will definitely do a bunch of videos on that because you know me, you know the channel. I love Sega arcade games, especially the Model 2 and Model 3 generation of hardware. But honestly, MAME had an awesome month, and honestly, it's just wild to me to think that tomorrow's going to be May 1st. I feel like we just finished up with the holidays, but MAME, like Uncle Eddie said in Christmas Vacation, is the gift that keeps on giving, the year-round Clark, and I can't believe we got 8 more months of MAME fun coming our way. Next time it updates, I'll definitely bring a video, and I know you guys enjoy these, so don't worry, it's going to become a permanent fixture of the channel because you guys have been asking. Short of that, we're done, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.